What up, and welcome to a new series I'm starting on my channel called Dumb Shit Americans Know. Alright? Now, Americans know a lot of dumb shit, legitimately. Alright? Like, we sit here and we believe a lot of things, and like America's the greatest country in the world, and all these, people believe in angels and QAnon thinks that, the government's a deep state pedophile ring, and Alex Jones stands here and believes that, the interdimensional space aliens are coming down here to put frogs in the water to turn on, the lesbians gay, whatever, right? There's a lot of dumb shit that individuals believe. But I think there's some big ones when it comes down to an economic and a governmental understanding of how things work, like a fundamental basic principle that we have been sold that's complete and utter dog shit, right? Like they've made a lot of rationalizations along the years, right? Like, when you talk about like things like critical race theory and things of this nature, what they are is they're rationalizing stupid fucking thoughts, right? They're rationalizing dumb motherfuckers' behavior. And they're doing it poorly. And it's the same thing with these things here. And to this one here today is going to be on free trade, right? And how free trade legitimately is the dumbest fucking thing any country could do, because there's no such thing as free fucking trade, legitimately, right? And let's get this motherfucker started off. Now, what most individuals believe about free trade is what was set up under what's known as the Bretton Woods Agreement, all right? And a lot of people have no idea. Like, they think that the Bretton Woods Agreement was only about the gold and the dollar standard and how we were going to maintain $35 an ounce for gold for, countries and larger banks to come in and be able to trade in their dollars for gold, so that the world had a stable reserve currency. And this lasted up until 1972 when Richard Nixon moved us off the gold standard. And these are things that are true. Okay, they're absolutely true. But there was also parts of the Bretton Woods Agreement that happened in New Hampshire in 1944, 1945 that people really don't know about, right? And one of them is what's known as the Atlantic Charter, all right? And the Atlantic Charter very simply states it's all nations to equal access to trade and raw materials. Moreover, the Charter called for the freedom of the seas, a principal U.S. foreign policy aim since France and Britain had first threatened U.S. shipping in the 1790s. The disarmament of aggressors and the establishment of a wider, more permanent system of global security. As the war drew to a close, the Bretton Woods Conference was in culmination to some 2.5 years of planning for post-war reconstruction by the treasuries of the U.S. and U.K. U.S. representatives studied with the British counterparts and reconstitution of what had been lacking between the two world wars, a system of international payments that would let nations trade without fear of sudden currency depreciation or wild rate fluctuations, ailments that had nearly paralyzed world capitalism. Now, what does this actually mean? This means that the United States, all right, basically broke up all the empires of Europe: France, Britain, Spain, what had been left of Spain, Turkey, Germany. Whoever it was had, colonies all over the place, and we basically broke them up, all right? And we said, look, you don't have to go out and get, all your goods from your colonies anymore. Anybody can go and get whatever they want and bring it back to their country and, basically sit here and, convert it into, processed material, a processed finished good. And you don't have to worry about whether or not somebody's going to attack your ships or anything in this nature, because the U.S. Navy will float around the world. We offer this to all of our friends and allies, and eventually to most of our enemies as well. And basically the whole world lives underneath of this umbrella now. And the United States is the only one footing the bill for this. And this is the problem with free trade. It's not actually free to the United States citizen or the United States government. We actually have to pay for it with our tax dollars on a regular basis. So all the basis of trade all around the world, all right, between countries, is subsidized by the United States government's military apparatus. That's the truth. All right. So with that being said, let's have a conversation about prescription drugs. Now, when you talk about free trade, the one that I'm going to immediately go to and have a conversation about is prescription drugs, because it's the one that affects almost all of Americans when it comes down to it, or will affect you at some point in your life where you're going to have to pay for prescriptions for something that's wrong with you. Because, well, let's be honest with you, unless you get shot in the face, right, and die young, you're going to end up getting old, okay? Get hit by a bus, whatever the case might be, right? And you're going to end up having to deal with paying for prescription medications at some point in your life. And it is what it is. Now, United States creates the vast majority of all prescriptions. All right. All medications and all medical technologies come out of the United States, almost every one of them. Now, the reason for this is because we have a free market capitalist system that allows companies to be able to stand here and do the R&D and do the hard work of, going through scientists and engineers and bioengineers and laboratories and experiments and passing the FDA and all the stuff that goes with creating a new drug. And in doing so, they'll know that they'll get paid back because they can charge, whatever they want in the U.S. market. Problem is, though, is that the rest of the world rides on these drugs as well. And they don't ever pay the same price. They negotiate as governments and blocks. And we negotiate as individual citizens or, with our insurance companies. And this is a bit of a problem when you have a corporation trying to negotiate with a government over what it's going to pay for prescription drugs. Now, you can say that, we can go overseas and get our medication, but the truth is you're just getting your medication back that you already paid for, okay, legit. And you're undercutting your own technology. So the answer is either A, we don't need to have free trade anymore, right? Or B, we need to get our military involved in this conversation. We have to get our government involved with this conversation. That eliminates free trade completely. This is the end result of free trade, is that it's not actually free. And this is what happens with a lot of goods all over the world. When the United States goes to sell things, we find out that our stuff is not allowed in their markets, and their stuff is always allowed in ours. Does that sound like free trade to you? It doesn't to me. So let's continue. Now, one of the larger issues that we have with free trade is the fact that basically we've shipped off all of our manufacturing facilities to other countries, right? Yes, we had a lot of jobs get lost to automation, and there's a lot more coming. I was watching a video on the Zyger. It's a hypercar built in America. It does like 270 miles an hour, right? It was all built by AI, and it's built by complete robots and all automated systems, right? And they can build, basically they have like these blocks which are like 15 by 15 square feet, and like each of those can produce 10,000 vehicles a year, right? And so they can just sit there and put a whole bunch of these blocks in a factory, and each one of them can be tuned to build a different type of car in a half an hour, right? And it's all completely automated. There's no human beings involved. Believe me, it's going to get way worse before it gets better. Now, the problem is that it didn't have to be this bad to begin with. An American middle class didn't have to be stripped out. We have allowed our government and these corporations to be able to go to other countries and use child labor in places that have suicide nets hung up over top of the buildings, legit, to catch people who were jumping out of facilities who were legitimately getting abused, who don't have any EPA regulations and have no government conditions on what they do. To stand here and sell goods in the United States under the umbrella of the United States military, protecting their trade routes and protecting their energy routes and protecting their resource routes and protecting all the raw material routes that they have all over the world, while we stood here and legitimately gave up our jobs and our money and ended up in a much worse place than where we are today. All right, so with that being said, none of this sounds like free trade. Little individuals go, oh man, between two countries is, who are equal is a good thing. There are no two countries who are equal. And that's another issue when it comes down to it. There are government regulations all over the world, in particular in most of the Western world, that the United States does not have. There's a reason why fracking exploded in the United States, and it hasn't done a whole lot in the rest of the world. It's because of the fact that we have property rights, intellectual property rights, copyright rights, patent rights, and we have a whole bunch of rights to our things that no other country actually has. And we have the raw labor force to be able to go and just experiment without having permitting and, education and the government and safety and OSHA involved and all the things, I'm saying, that like other countries, legit, if you want to stand here and do anything at all, you have to, have, like, for any business that's bigger than like 100 people, for instance, in Britain, you have to have a health and safety person who's legitimately basically a government employee. Right? And this is the Russian model, or this is the German Stasi model when it comes down to it. And so they're not free countries, right? And they never have been free countries. And they protect their goods on a regular basis, and they protect their jobs, and they protect their workers. Now, there's something to be said for, like when you start talking about, the weaving looms in India ended up setting back, their civilization and their economy. And, when you stand here and you talk about, these countries that ended up never innovating, that's completely understandable, and I hear exactly what's being said. And having competition between countries to be able to make goods that are the best that possibly they can be, right? That's a conversation to be had. But on the same point though, where's everybody else's shit at? Legit. Like, where's everybody else's prescription medications? Where's their health technology? Where's their shit? They're not doing it. We are. We're creating the iPhones. We created the 20th and the 21st century. We will continue to do so. But the problem is that you have to be able to have people who are willing to buy it, or they're going to rise up and take it out of your mouth. That's how this works. All right. You're able to stand here and create anything you want to create. And that's fine. Right. I'm not saying you have to be charitable, but you have to have individuals be able to afford stuff. The corporations, that they eventually get to the point where, they're not selling to anybody, right? Because our trade deficit is ridiculous. It's obscene, right? It's like, it's like $385 billion a year. I mean, now granted, we don't import or export a lot. We have a continental economy. But the thing is if you have, again, this is another problem, right? Where we're isolated. If you don't have the regular people have the ability to buy things, and you're going to stand here and go, we're going to put in UBI. Well, the corporations, this is a dumb idea, because it is basically like you're giving away tax money to individuals to stand here and buy goods from somebody you're taking tax money from. Right? It's a system that's going to continue to lose money until it ends up in a problem where you're hyperinflated and you can't afford anything to begin with. This is a massive problem that nobody wants to have a conversation about. Nobody's willing to even talk about. I mean, other than maybe Andrew Yang, right? I mean, because long term, that's not a viable situation. That's not a viable option. So with that being said, maybe, just maybe, we should have a conversation about actual free trade. Or maybe even get our military involved to get some of these costs under control for things like prescription medications. Because we got a lot of boomers retiring. And I'll be honest with you. If you stand here and you look at our, our spending in our government, the number one spending item is medical when it comes down to it. If we can get some of that off the top, because a lot of their prescription medications is what they're spending money on for the medical. If we can get that under control, we can cut that in half and have the money to be able to stand here and have a conversation about putting in the infrastructure, or even maybe, funding the pensions that are completely underfunded in our country. Legit. So with that, that's where we are right now. But free trade is bullshit. Legit. You probably should rethink what you think about it. Hope this video helps. It's on Peace, Pnoid News. You know the deal. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.